Last video I talked to you about the education system and how the European-based American education has basically undermined good health and the godly spirit that would have directed all of us in the right path. Today I want to continue, but first I'm going to talk to you about a dream that God showed me a few weeks ago. Now, this dream was amazing because in one day or one night, I saw the churches. I saw the white church, the black church and its condition. And then the next night, I saw the Asian church. Well, I don't know a lot about Christian Asian churches. So this was really a shock to me, what I'm going to tell you. And I'm going to start with the American, and European basically based church. Now, in this church, it was a little gruesome and a little terrifying. In this dream, I saw that outside there was this being, and he had like a hood on with a cape. He was bending down and he was doing something, but I couldn't see what he was doing. And I stood there for a while and watched, and I saw that the reason he was bending over is because he was eating something. And this man, which I considered a man, he looked like a man, when he raised back up, he had blood on his mouth. He was eating a body. Now, to the left were stately gentlemen standing beside of him, as if they were the ones that were preparing the body, or, supplying what this man or this beast creature was eating. And when he bent down again to finish up, when he finished eating, there was nothing left but bones and some, little sinew and a little blood left on I could see the rib cage. I became so terrified and nervous. And then the scene switched, and they were now in this church, a large church, and a lot of people. It was light, and the church was beautiful and pretty. Lots of white people dressed nice and neatly. And these gentlemen who operated this church were also standing by again. Well, there it was, this same man. He no longer had his cape on or his, the dark hood. So I could see that it was a man, a white male. He was preaching to the people and telling them all kind of wonderful things, and they were all listening. Now, there were some in the church, audience sitting down that I could sense they were innocent. They did not know that this man was a beast that was actually feeding on bodies and souls. However, the men, the head of this organization, they knew. And so I had my son with me, and I realized, oh my God, this is the same creature that was eating the flesh off of a body in an area somewhere, out that wasn't in the church. So I started trying to figure out ways how to get away from and get out of this church. Well, then he started calling up the children, and I told my son, don't go up and don't look in his face, because the whole time that this man is preaching, I somehow knew within my subconscious not to look in his face, not to look in his eyes. So I would never directly look in his eyes while he's preaching. And then as time went on, I tried to think of a way to get out. So I thought of an excuse to go to the bathroom. As I'm going to the bathroom, I realized on each of us, they have given these little tags, almost like the little chips. But it was almost like in a hard little funny shaped medallion. And I realized this was almost like a tracking device, that my son had one, I had one, and everyone in the church had one. So I went to the bathroom, try to figure out how to get rid of this thing and get out of there. As I'm coming back out, somehow I entered another room where they had all come also. And one of the ladies said, you're not supposed to be here. I said, oh yeah, I made a mistake and came here. There where we were all standing was a body with a sheet covered over it. I did not see the body. That minister, who was the one who was the beast eating flesh, he was coming also into the room, but there was only a certain people that were supposed to be there. I guess the inter sanctum people who knew who he was, and also these other men. I could almost call them like deacons, but they were the ones, taking care of everything he needed and preparing and providing the bodies. And now as I think back, I realize now perhaps that's the minister, today's ministers, who really know the truth, but they're watering it down to the people, and the people are becoming victims to this watered down truth that is not of God. So eventually I escaped with my son, and across the street I saw that there was this great construction work going on. And I thought to myself, if I could get to someone over there and let them know they could help us. And I realize now perhaps that construction is God building his new kingdom. Remember, he said in the last days, he's going to build up a kingdom that will never be destroyed, never go away. So that was the end of the white church. Now the next dream, it was in the same night, but different sessions of the night. The next dream was the black church. I found myself in this beautiful house with a black lady, it seemed like a middle-aged black woman, and her family. And she was explaining to me how her father used to run a large church. And when she pointed out the window, I could see this beautiful cathedral, like some of the ones you see in New York. It looked like sort of Gothic. They've been there a long time, the black churches, or in Chicago. 2 steeples, one on each side, and then the main, place where they have the services. So she pointed down, we were high up in the house or apartment where she lived. She pointed down and she said, see, that's the church that my father used to pastor. However, he passed away, he died. And then the church caught on fire and burnt. And since then there's, basically they couldn't use the church. But as we looked, we saw people, like street people, homeless people going in and out. But they were going in and out of the sides, each side of the steeple parts, the beautiful parts that, jets up into the air. The main body of the church where they would have, the services, we walked into that, and you could tell it had been sodden, like it had been on fire, but the fire people must have put it out years ago. You could still see the beautiful red carpet and big chairs where the pastor and his assistant pastor would have sat. Nice, cushy, beautiful, but it was sodden, as if, you knew it had been, firemen had put it out maybe years ago. No one was in this part. No one. It looked like it hadn't been touched as far as, after the fire. It still looked, good in a way, but everyone was in the other sides of the church. This areas where you would probably have, little eating, little dinners, and different places where they would have offices. All of these areas were where people were going in and out from the street, hiding out. It was dark in there, and had the place, I guess, where they were living and bringing things in and selling things on the street or whatever. And so we walked through, and I wondered, why isn't there anyone that's preaching? Why isn't there anyone that's, taking care of the main sanctuary? There was no one. So she led me on through where it was dark and the people were going in and out. I didn't see any people at that time. Then we went out the back door. We stepped over something that looked like dog food. It looked like, at first I thought it was, feces. But then I realized, oh no, this is dog food chunks. It looked like someone had spilled a bag of dog food. And then the Lord helped me to understand about each one of these scenes. He showed me that, and I will try to see, can I read it so it will help me. In this white church, he said, it is the downfall of humanity because it's lies feeding upon human souls, bodies refusing to receive the whole truth, seducing spirits, submitting to wickedness. Some victims are servants of God, and some are servants to the beast, who continues to devour their souls and bodies. Now, for the black church, he helped me to understand that this water is sodden. You know how the Bible says that the chosen sons of God on the earth have been, been so captivated by the Gentiles that they've been sodden with the sins and sodden with the wrath of God. And then he also said about the black church, he said, it is, they refuse to reject assimilation, just surviving, no true devotion, serving themselves, no leaders, no truth, no wisdom. And then the next night, I was amazed. I saw an Asian church. And of course, like I said, I know very little about Christian Asians and what their church is about or what they believe. And in this church, it was beautiful. It was an older man pastor, an Asian man who was pastoring. And then it seemed like there was another area of this church where it was like a lecture hall. While the services were going on, I saw this man come out. He acted as if he needed to learn something, or he was there to know something. He was, looking for, salvation, and he wanted to understand. He came down in this lecture part of the church. A few minutes later, this beautiful dressed Asian woman came out. She had this beautiful caramel colored, it was like beige, beautiful dress on, and then on top this beautiful silk overlay jacket that was just beautiful. It was fancy, it was sort of puffy, and you could see it, and she looked almost like perfectly put together. However, they were meeting as in a relationship secretly. No one was knowing. And then I saw this darker skin. You know how Asians, some of them come in different hues. Well, I saw this Asian man. He looked brown skin, like us, we have different hues. He came in, he looked like he was, come off the street from somewhere. He didn't look like he was very rich like them. And he come where they were standing, and they started to pushing him down. Every time he tried to get up off the ground, they would push him down, and they looked at him as if he had no value or worth because he was a brown Asian. And I realized, oh, I see. They believe that because they're whiter or lighter, they're perfect. And they have everything perfectly put together. And every time this darker skinned Asian man tried to get up off the ground, once they saw him when he first came in, he was walking. But, of course, he looked like he didn't basically fit in there. They started to pushing him down. And once they had him down, they would not let him get up. Every time he would try to rise up, they would put their foot down, push him down with their hands. And so God revealed to me what this was. He says, Asian churches, doubtless they seek after God, but their house is of delusion. They want perfection of beauty. Not looking for God in his wholeness, in his image, but looking for God in their own image. In other words, if Yahshua Messiah came into an Asian church being a burnt bronze man, he would not be received. He would be rejected because of his color. So this is the crimes of the churches. And I believe the African Hebrew church is more guilty because they would have been or should have been the leaders of humanity. And when they assimilated to this beast that now controls the churches through the white Christians, we're subjected to this wickedness and we have lost our way. There's no one leading God's people. I know in the Bible it also says they're like a gazelle caught in a net at the end of the road. There are no sons of God here on the earth that is leading his people, leading the churches. The churches are defiled with their own desires and their own lust. They're serving the dragon and think they're serving God. So I'm going to continue bringing these words to you. I was shocked myself at what I saw and these revelations, and I hope you'll continue to watch and continue to send your questions because God is continually, I believe, pouring out his spirit on many people, awakening his saints to the truth so they can awaken the people if they so choose to humble themselves, turn from their wicked ways, and listen to what God has to say to his church. Thank you.